Hello, everyone. My name is Monica Mastrantonio, and I'm here to talk a little bit about female authors from the Global South, especially the ones that have been very successful in their writing ventures, but they were forgotten in history and all the background to get back to us nowadays. It is just lately in 2020 that the name of these voices from the last century become available to us in many other forms. The three authors that I'm going to be speaking about today are from Brazil. They are called Clarice Lispector, that many people have already heard about. Hilda Hilst. Not many people have heard about her or even read her writings. And also Carolina Maria de Jesus, who is another author that is completely forgotten, being a Black woman and coming from the slums and writing magnificently in her diaries. So I'm going to share my screen, so we can continue with that. So banned from history, the anti-Canon voices from the Global South. Hilda, Carolina, and Clarice. They are very different from each other, and also the way they write and they prototype their ideas and also their words. They were, I'm not going to use decolonizing because they were more than that. They were building their own voices from their own perspective. And my questions here are, why aren't we reading them? Why are they still being kept secret? Why don't we see many of them spread and being spoken about, not only in the Global South, but also internationally? So the point here is to raise the visibility of these voices that found the very property of having one voice and one style and one kind of language out there in the world. The three of them were marginalized for different reasons. We can say that Carolina, because being a Black poor woman from the South, but also Hilda Hilst, because she wrote in a non-standard way, and Lispector as well, because they wanted her writings to please and to be adaptable. So the three of them did not adapt. It's incredible, and I'm going to start with Carolina because she portrayed a way of seeing society. She says, I classify São Paulo, the largest city in South America. The governor's palace is the living room. The mayor's office is the dining room. And the city is the garden. And the favela is the backyard where they throw the garbage. So she does not write only literature, but she's postulating an idea of a country and also how that impacts her. We have more on her. She lived, and we are going to see that the three of them also were born at the beginning of last century and lived until almost the end of it, but they didn't live much. They lived until her 70s, around that. So she's best known for her diary, Quarto de Despejo, or Junk Room, where she wrote about living in the backyard in one just room. And her writings, she continued writing through her lifetime. And she kept all these diaries and writings in a very unique voice and comprehension towards the Brazilian society. So it was last year that I went to her exhibition at the Instituto Moreira Salles, which is in São Paulo, and they did her first exhibition showing all her work. So what I think it's absolutely unacceptable that all throughout my educational years, I never came or faced any of her writings. So she is still impact women, and in her exhibition, there was especially one book that a maid in France said, I wrote this to you, Carolina, because meanwhile we are wondering about very important things. There are people that just want to clean their windows. So, and this we have some of her quotes, like, in our country, everything is weakening, the money is weak, democracy is weak, and everything that is weak die. We are slaves to the cost of living. I think this is so actual, so important, and this is everywhere. The book is man's best invention so far. So she's an amazing author that we should all read. Then I'm going to speak about Hilda, which I have a very close relationship because my father is her cousin. So I grew up with that there was this unapologetical author in the family, and that nobody in the family liked her because she really had her own voice. She was a Brazilian poet, novelist, and playwright. And all throughout her career, she created her own language. And that's what I'm going to argue today. Carolina with her voice, Hilda Hilst with her own language, her own is a new pattern of language and new topics as well. So she came from a very wealthy family, and so different from Carolina, but she suffered prejudice since young, first because of her mother died, but actually her father was wealthy, but her mother was known as a prostitute. And her father was very young, sent to a hospice, okay, to a mental ward in a hospice, and he suffered from schizophrenia. And she was also into that kind of experience and issues. Even later in life, she said that she never married and never had children because she didn't want to face the possibility of her children having schizophrenia as well. So she has a very peculiar life for most of the women in her times. So I wanted to escape a hood. My mouth constantly starved for your mouth. Life was a splendor and marvel, unparalleled glimmer when you touched me, and sinister and high cuppings and nothingness when you were absent. So even her way of portraying things is very, very unique. She was extremely prized all throughout her life. We see here some of her prizes, but not fully acclaimed. She complained a lot about that people would not recognize her or know who she really was and the impact of her. Several of her writings tackle political and social controversial issues, so she had been marginalized for that, especially in terms of incest, queer sexuality, and some pornographic terms. So she has been banned from the in literature circles. Again, it was also in 2020 that we have a major exhibition on her with films and many things trying to portray one of the most important female authors of the Global South. We have here as well a description of herself. I'm a little mauve, anise stained glass decomposition on the table where the music poops. My egg fits in the hand, my crooked feet fit in the sky, silver teapot, white coat. So you see, it's very, very unique. Sometimes we know, or we can infer, sometimes we don't even know exactly what she means. I find it weird to call myself Hilda Hilst. That's exactly the way she has always been, finding unusualness in everything and playing with words. So we have also then Clarice Lispector. Clarice Lispector is also recognized for her style. She has a brilliant style, and she wrote very deeply into the emotional and the psychological aspects of the being. And she was also dismissed from her job, her post as a journalist at the newspaper. So she also faced contradictions. She also faced not having a place by the sun, although being recognized as one of the greatest literature voices of the South. It was only in 2015, as we can see here, that she is recognized, translated to English, and published by Penguin. But she lived as well from 1920 to 1970. She's innovative, idiosyncratic. Her works explore multiple themes, but also around familiarity, intimacy, and so on. She has gained some recognition, but again, not everything that she fully deserves, as creating her own style. And as it says here, she is described as one of the most important Jewish authors since Kafka. Here, to think is an act, to feel is a fact. Again, do you ever suddenly find it strange to be yourself? So again, it resembles a little bit of how Hilda also portraits herself, and how Carolina also portraits herself and her pain. Here it's everything in the world began with a yes. Okay, one molecule said yes to another molecule, and her life was born. So, again, she clearly says, I don't write in order to gratify anybody else. So she was not willing for approval, for others' approval. She was writing because she had something to say. These unapologetical female authors have been somehow discredited and almost eliminated from the global and local scenarios. I have never in my old school material seen any or read or come into contact in any material from them. It was because of my literature endeavors out of schools, out of universities, that of course I immersed in their voices and became greatly influenced by them. And the word that I would use for the three of them, it's insubordination. They didn't follow the thread. They were creating language magnificently. And that's precisely their importance and their value. I thank you so much, everyone here. And I leave my contact should you have any questions or any further interest. I do recommend reading the three of them, parts of their works, and being totally changed because as they are so insubordinate and so themselves, they help us to bring life to our voice, to our own language, and to our own style. Thank you so much. I will stop. Oh, sorry.